Thank you very much. My name's Gavin Marx. Listening to the discussions this morning, I would just like to confirm I'm actually a male medical oncologist from the Sydney Adventist Hospital. So I'd firstly like to thank the organising committee for inviting us to have an opportunity to present our work, which I'll be doing today on behalf of my co-authors. We all know here today that cancer is a big problem. It touches the lives of many. In 2016, there are 130,000 new cases. There are almost 50,000 deaths. And at the end of 2010, 384,000 people were alive and living with the diagnosis of cancer. Those patients had been diagnosed within the 5 years prior. What we're certainly starting to learn, and for me as a medical oncologist, we're learning more and more that it's not just about treating the cancer. There's much more to the cancer than just the cancer. And now, having conferences like this, which are particularly focusing on the whole person, we're really starting to appreciate that the impact that cancer has is a ripple effect on so many levels, including the patient, their families, friends, community, and the workplace. It's a time of heightened emotion, confusion, and anxiety. We've certainly come a long way in optimizing cancer care, and my role has mainly been in the treatment category and seeing improvements in surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and access to clinical trials. There have been major advances. We've also seen significant progress in looking after supportive treatments, and now, more importantly, we're focusing on the emotional and psychological care of our patients. For some patients, trying to document this experience is difficult, and some people try and achieve this through expressive writing and journaling. The data to date on that is quite limited. There are very few randomized controlled trials evaluating expressive writing or journaling. The results are quite mixed, with some studies showing an improvement, some showing it makes no difference at all. The real challenges, though, are that the trials are often very small, and there's quite a wide variation in the endpoints. Quantifying the impact on the patient and the recipient is an ongoing issue and a real challenge for research in this space. The concept of It's About Us was inspired by our patients. Patients described a need and a lack of any existing tools to help them with expressive writing and journaling. We needed something that was personalized and that could be customized. We know that every patient's experience is unique, and a digital version had the flexibility to tailor it to an individual need. We also had experience, particularly with patients who had an uncertain future and metastatic disease, particularly with young children, that they wanted an opportunity to leave a legacy, memories, thoughts, and emotions, and that this difficult turmoil was difficult to do. It's About Us set about to try and resolve this. Our mission was to provide a unique digital scrapbook support tool for anyone affected by cancer to help them and their families through what would be a very difficult time. We established a not-for-profit charity, and we launched It's About Us in October 2015. It is a free digital book. This is available digitally, and patients can print this themselves at home. There is also an opportunity through our print partner, Memento, to produce a hard-covered book at a subsidised price, and we've got a few of those around for later, which our patients have consented to be viewed at the meeting. I'd like to share with you a video that highlights a little bit about It's About Us. It's a 2-minute video.
It's About Us is for anyone affected by cancer, any family, friends, patients who can actually create a beautiful digital scrapbook that they'll have forever.
It gives you a way of putting all of those life stories together. It also enables you to publish photos along with those memories that you've got.
When people are crystal clear about what's important to them, giving them an opportunity to actually put that to paper and document that, I think is very valuable.
Each page offers up thought starters about what you may want to write.
It gives you ideas and suggestions and sentences to start a conversation. It was actually my birthday that I wrote a letter to Avia about when I'm not here. I said that, I hope that I have made her feel, just so loved that when I'm not around, I want her to think about all of the good times that we've had and kind of draw strength from that.
Often when people are going through treatment, they can feel quite isolated and feel that other people don't really understand or get it. It's
writing and journaling that can be done as a cathartic exercise.
What scared me was thinking that our future was bound by a possible timeline much shorter than I had dreamt of. I felt very sad. I felt like we were being robbed of building our dreams together.
What I wanted for them is to be happy, healthy, and to not forget me. And I don't think that they would ever do that on purpose. But, you know, I feel so much more comfortable knowing that they've got a book that they can pick up at any time, and if they want memories of Mum, if they want to know who I was, this is a really good place to start. It's a really good place for them to read and to maybe inspire some questions for Dad or some questions for Nana and Papa. And at any time they can access me.
My privilege is to work with those remarkable people. So what we've established with It's About Us is we've been able to build a digital template style book that can be personalised and individualised to a person's needs. They can use their own photographs, quotes, thoughts, and stories. We've developed a pre-designed book which makes it much easier for some patients. It's About Us is quite unique, and the book itself can be customised and personalised to create something that's relevant and meaningful. It provides an inspiration through simple, personalised, template-style pages. What we do is provide patients with triggers to start a discussion, to start a conversation, to make that initial discussion easier. We provide a way for people to capture their memories, their emotions, and feelings through text, photos in a supported framework. Family and friends can also contribute. We spent some time trying to understand what patients' needs were in establishing the templates, and we created a team of patients, doctors, nurses, bereavement counsellors, psychologists, many of the people in the room here today, and I appreciate their input. And through those conversations and those discussions, we were able to develop a template-style framework which can be easily added to or taken away depending on what patients wish. Each template has a thought starter to try and trigger some of these thoughts and stimulate that conversation. It took a lot to make It's About Us happen, and there are a number of people who've been involved in making it happen. We were able to secure a startup grant from the Sound Foundation, which really was the impetus to make this happen. We identified a software and print partner through Memento who've been phenomenal. We created a branding identity, a website, a social media presence, and we developed the artwork and the book software as well as an online tutorial to try and make this as easy as possible for patients. We also developed a pre-designed quick book, so for some patients who just want a simple, easy-to-use thing, that's available. Others can make it much more involved and complicated if they so wish and are more technically savvy. It's About Us was launched in 2015, just under a year ago, and to date we've had 67 books published. We've had 600 software downloads on average per month, and it seems that there's quite a wide spectrum of users who are using this. The bulk of patients who are using it are patients with metastatic disease and sometimes insecure futures who want to leave a legacy and sometimes just for the cathartic experience of sharing their thoughts. We've had some books that have been written in memory of, particularly a lady whose daughter died many years prior who's developed one of these books for her grandchildren and found that experience very relieving. The books are available in a hardcover technique, as I've shown here today, and also many people just use it as a digital version. What about the future? Our goal is really to make It's About Us available for every cancer patient. It's free, and we're trying to really just drive the awareness and increase the reach, and we hope that you guys would facilitate that. We've partnered with a number of cancer associations, including the Cancer Council of New South Wales and Victoria. We've linked up with a number of hospitals, including some in New South Wales and Victoria. We're working with a number of like-minded not-for-profit groups. The real challenge now is to try and evaluate this more in a research and qualitative manner, and this is always a challenge in this space, but it's certainly something that we're focusing on now for the future. Again, our primary goal is to try and make this available and accessible for any patient who would feel that this would be of value to them. And we're now starting to look at developing a clinical research program to understand that a bit better. This is a web-based product, so there is also the potential for down the track for this to become something that's available internationally. I'd like to share with you some feedback. Lisa, a cancer patient, said that It's About Us is an easy program to use and a wonderful keepsake to give to your loved ones. My book is something that my family will cherish for a long time. Another parent, the entire process of creating this book somehow seemed to clear a blockage in me. Marissa, another patient, it is comforting to know that if or when something does happen to me, there's a book there for my daughter. It's not just about my cancer and my treatment. It's about our whole lives together. It's About Us wouldn't have happened without a lot of thanks, and there are a number of people in this room who've certainly contributed to this, particularly our patients and their families who have been the inspiration of making this happen. I obviously also acknowledge the SAND Foundation for giving us the startup grant that made this happen. Memento photo books have been phenomenal and have been a real support from a technical point of view, and also to facilitate an online 24-hour phone line for our patients to access in completing their books if there are any problems. We have a big team of It's About Us volunteers who dedicate their time tirelessly, and I really appreciate their contributions. And I'd also obviously like to thank all of our sponsors, a number of people who have provided us with legal, IT, technical assistance, all for free. This is our website, www.itsaboutus.com.au. Please feel free to use it. We've got a couple of books around here as well if people want to have a look, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? We do have time.
Hello. Oh, hello.
Yes,
I run a prostate cancer support group, and I couldn't help but notice that there were no men in your presentation, and I certainly know how difficult it is to tap into the emotional impact of the cancer diagnosis for men, or perhaps any emotional.
This is becoming a real theme here.
Is this something that you recognised, and do you have any ideas how we can tap into the male psyche and their emotional aspects?
So look, I agree, and I think that is one of the challenges in dealing with men with tapping into these things. I should tell you, though, that we have had a couple of books made by men. In fact, those are the biggest and most in detail and in-depth books. And there was one. So just to highlight, these books are completely confidential, so we don't actually see any of the books. The only books that we see are the books of the patients who have, given us permission to promote the facility. And one of them is a guy with prostate cancer, and his book is probably double the size of anyone else's book. So there are, it is a limitation, and I suppose that's one of the problems with It's About Us, is that it's not there for everybody. But I think what it's trying to do is tap into a need for patients who are looking for this sort of thing. And I think if men have an opportunity and are made aware of it, it may not be the same sort of emotional type book, but they also have a lot of stuff to offload. And so, yes, it's a very small proportion of the books that will be produced, but I think there's certainly some out there already.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? Yes.
Such a resource like this in a cancer patient's journey, I guess?
Yeah, so I think, as a medical oncologist, I think that's one of the real challenges. And I think one of the issues with this is that this is not only a book that's designed to be as a legacy. So there is certainly that role, and for some patients, that's an important part of it. We also wanted to design this as a cathartic experience. So even for patients with very early stage disease, if it's given to them as an opportunity to do it in that way, as you know, a diagnosis of cancer is obviously very confronting, and sometimes it makes people very clear about what their goals and their directions and so on are. And so even for patients with very early stage disease, there's an opportunity to use it just for that cathartic experience. One of the challenges, and personally as a medical oncologist, I have that as well, dealing with our patients with metastatic disease, is there's this continuous conflict between being aggressive and doing everything that we can to treat the disease, and a concern that if we start discussing these things and planning for these things, it implies that we're moving away from the aggressive treatment side of things. And I think having that open discussion with patients and saying that we're doing the two in parallel is very important. And one of the limitations of this is that if we leave it too late, patients lose the opportunity of achieving a goal that they really would like to do. So we recognize that it is a challenge in working out the right timing of doing it, but I think earlier is probably better, and having it in a discussion where you're highlighting that you're not taking away the active treatment component, we're just managing something that's an important part of the disease in parallel.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're out of time, so please thank Gavin Marx.